I was right in the post office. And I was going to court, girl, almost every 2 weeks. This was like the longest drawn out, most miserable of the end of a divorce ever. Like, if it was like a TV show, like you would think I made it all up. And I came in there and I was just so done. I was exhausted. I was shaking. I just looked horrible. You would thought I was on drugs because I was in there crying. I didn't realize that my coworker was a pastor. And he just was like, come on in the office for a second. I was like, I just can't no more. Like, I just can't. And I'm just like pouring out crying. He said, do you know that everything that I've put you through is not always for you? Mm-hmm. And I was like, what do you mean? What is that got to do with me right now? Like, I don't understand. I'm like, just Trisha. But it took some time. And slowly through time, repeating that to myself, like, it stuck in my head for so long. Until one day, he invited me to his church. And I don't really go to anywhere. He invited to his church and he said, I just want you to talk about your experience. And it's Women's Day. Can you just do this for me, please? I'm like, all right, bye, Zoe. Like, I'll go. And I went and spoke, and this young lady came up to me. And she looked at me in my eyes and was like, I would never know. But knowing, hearing that from you, you just made me feel like I can get through anything.
Who's ready for some Girl Talk? Welcome to Girl Talk. I'm Nicole D. Miller, author, blogger, speaker, hybrid book publisher, and your host. At Girl Talk, we are a safe space for female leaders to engage in healing and edifying conversation. This is your Me Too empathetic corner, where we have authentic and transformative dialogue designed to uplift and connect high-achieving women like you. Are you looking for a safe space to cultivate sisterhood with other like-minded female bosses? Leave your cape at the door and join the conversation. Welcome back to Girl Talk, where we create space for honest conversations and deep connection. I'm your host, Nicole D. Miller. Today, we're continuing a conversation that touches every one of us at some point in life: grief. This is part 2 of dealing with grief at the holidays. Joining me are a panel of dynamic women who have each walked out the often heart-crushing road of loss. Dr. Shamarah J. Hutchins, Jamia Lewis, Miss Gloria Terry, and Butter Khan. Together, we'll explore how grief has shaped not just our minds and emotions, but even our bodies and faith. Our panelists give raw, unfiltered accounts of the twists and turns in their life journeys, from struggling with grief brain resulting from unexpected trauma to the uncharacteristic, even humorous moments we found ourselves in while navigating our pain. If you'd like to reach out, each panelist's bios and contact info can be found in the show notes. Through their stories, we'll uncover insights on resilience, recovery, and finding joy in the midst of disrupted plans. It's a deeply personal, yet universal, reflection on love and loss, and moving forward. If for some reason you missed the first part, circle back to catch part 1 of this conversation. Whether you're grieving, supporting someone who is, or advocating for mental health, this episode invites you to reflect, heal, and connect with a little humor along the way. So, grab your favorite beverage, sit back, relax, and join the conversation.
So I'll share. I thought about something that you said reminded me. I was going through a transition in my career. I had been unemployed. I was unhappy. And I finally got this really great job. And then my former employer was like, nope, you can't work there. You signed this non-compete. And I'm like, what? So I went through a battle and I was so stressed that my hair fell out. Like I was just so stressed. And but God said, you've never seen me fight for you. I should fight for you. And so 2 months to the date, exactly that job says you can't work here. I ended up being in that position, and I worked there almost 9 years. So, but there was such a warfare trying to keep me from that position. So that was one thought I had about grief in a space that's not even a loss of a person, but just something difficult you're going through. With my mom, because it was a shock, because I found her and had no idea that I was going to that day, I was in this space of shock, and I couldn't sleep. Now, everybody who knows me know I love to sleep. I take naps every day. I'm not ashamed. But I couldn't. I could not sleep, and that's when I knew like something wrong with me, But the flip side was I got heavy into working out. Like I was already active. I was already working out. But then weeks before she passed, I started doing strength training. And that was something I know God was giving me ahead of time, because when she passed, strength training was a lifesaver. And I was spending 2 hours a day in the gym, 6 days a week, like going hard. And God said, you're going to have to be stronger than you've ever been. Like, this is what I'm doing in you. So it was grace for that, So on one side, it's just like this trauma, but then on the other side, it's like the grace of God. So I just wanted to share that.
The question is, how can ways grief affect your mind?
Okay. I definitely saw aspects of that just and at different times, but more recently, I'm just dealing with intense anxiety in a way to where it's like, no, I have to lay down. Like I can't do anything else. And the first time it happened, one of my cousins is a trainer at a gym. And so I went to one of his classes, and this was a couple months after our aunt had passed. And I was doing some kind of exercise, and it just really shouldn't have required the exertion from me that I was given from it. It was a really, what I felt like was a crazy reaction to where I had to like just stop, sit on the floor in the gym. He had to get me some water, and he's looking like, what's going, are you good? Are you okay? And it's like I had to, get my breathing under control before I could even really say anything. And then we try to explain, like, I think this is connected to grief, but not being really sure. But other moments when I noticed I was kind of feeling like that, and it hasn't happened a whole bunch of times, but enough for me to know, like, okay, this is part of a grief response that I'm having here. Also, eczema. Like, I only have those breakouts when it's my body's way of processing whatever it is that I'm dealing with. So even if I'm not consciously trying to address it, and I want to be able to avoid things, then it shows up in my body in some kind of way. Another way that I saw it, just mental clarity. I just didn't have it. So even though I'm someone that loves to read, I stopped really being able to. So like, not that I lost the ability to read altogether. I'm not saying that, but in terms of being able to concentrate on a text in front of me, I could not do it. And really, I'm still I'm better with that now, but it's like I've transitioned to just listening to a lot of things now instead of trying to focus and look at it, just because that became very difficult for me to do.
So the next question we're going to ask is, were there any crazy things you did or know of others doing when struggling with grief? And I'm going to kick this one off because it's just a funny story. Okay. So I was washing my wig. It's like, how do you start this? I was washing my wig, and I washed it in the bathtub. And so I'm running the bath. And then this guy that I'm talking to at the time calls. And this is the thing, let me give a backstory. I'm like a very type A responsible person. Like, I'm very much cross my T's, dot my I's, buy the book, blah, 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 right? So I don't do stuff like this. I don't lose track of time. I don't forget things. Like, that's just on me. Well, grief brain, I guess that's the thing. I'm talking to this guy on the phone for like an hour or two. And then I go back. I'm like, I hear something. Like, no, I'm not hearing. Okay. The bathtub had overflowed. The wig is slimming somewhere. And it's so bad that the water creaks through downstairs. I have water damage in the living room ceiling to the basement flooding. This is how bad it was, y'all. It was horrible. So thankfully, my spiritual father is a handyman for he was over repairing stuff. But to this day, my best friend will say, girl, I could just picture that wig floating down the stairs. I'm like, really? Another funny thing, which is not so funny, but that I noticed was due to the grief, was that I kept leaving my keys in the door. Again, I'm very responsible. It's like, what is happening? But I would leave my keys in the door, and then I'll wake up the next morning, can't find them, and it's still in the thing. And it was like protection over my life, because I got to deal with that during that time frame. But that's over now. I have successfully washed my wigs, and
I would say for me, even being naturally forgetful and, the stuff like that, it increased. So forgetfulness with things. And so one morning, my laptop for work and a journal I put on top of my trunk. I don't know what I was doing, but I put it on top of the trunk and got in, drove myself to work. And driving down the street, and I live like about 30 minutes on the expressway, from my job. And so I get closer to the school, and I'm like, where's my computer? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I drove off with this on my trunk. And so I had to call my mom, like, can you please drive down my street and see if you see my computer? And she did. She found my computer. So it's like, but the journal that stayed missing. So that just in terms of me just totally not being with it at all to like realize that something had happened. So that was one example. And then I don't feel like it's crazy, but it was uncharacteristic for me. I got tattoos. So I went and got tattoos in memory of my aunt. Like I got 3 in one day because I couldn't decide on what to get. So, but it's like never something that I had considered, but it was something that crazy for anyone that would have known me prior to, like, oh, I'm surprised you would, but it gave me a lot of comfort to do it. So yeah.
I don't think I have a specific crazy story. I just used to find myself doing like the weirdest stuff. And I was just like, what is wrong with you? Like airheaded stuff. Like I would forget what time I had you to work. Like I wake up in the morning and just be like, okay, wait, I had to be working at 9. So that means if I wake up at 7, I got this much time. No, wait, it's not 9 o'clock. Like, okay, you got 30 minutes. Before I know it, it's 9 o'clock and I'm like, oh, dude, I'm late for work. Oh, hey, and it's weird. And then driving to work, I would lose myself a lot. That I got stuck on using GPS because I couldn't figure out where I was going. I would be driving and then suddenly I would just make the wrong turn. Like, where am I driving to? Oh, no, it's this street. So now I got to make a U-turn. Then I'll make the U-turn and still go the wrong way. And I'm still like, wait, I don't know where I'm going. I'm lost to go into a place that I go every single day. And I'm always just driving. I'll be on the highway. Oh, crap. Now I got to go down 2 more exits to turn around. Now I don't even know which way I'm supposed to go. Like, I don't know where I am. And I'm just driving because driving was my peace. It's like how I process things and think. And I would just lose myself driving. And I'm like, I don't even know where I'm going right now. So I was very late all the time. And Edward going to be there anyway. So, but yeah, it was just, those were some of the weird things that I would do. It was just crazy. Like, okay, how are you going to ever get home right now? Because you just need to figure this out right now because you'll be out of gas.
That's right. I had that.
I can think of something pretty funny and crazy. I need to give you a backdrop first. I got married very young. I got married at 18. So as I said, my ex-husband and I have been married almost 20 years. So our story was sort of like a storybook story. You marry your so-called high school sweetheart. We had another child, so 2 children, the picket fence to the dog. He had a good job, I had a good job. We were young and just really acquiring a lot of things and materialism, and all of a sudden, our world comes tumbling down. So the funny thing that I could think of I did going through this process of loss, and shock and betrayal and all of that. I heard someone else say they got angry with God, and that's normal. That's totally fine. God can handle it. So I'm angry with him, and I don't drink. But this particular time, I was on drink. And I was going to go somewhere where nobody knew me, right? So I get in my vehicle, and I drive to this bar, the Droop. And soon as I walk in, who I see sticking at the bar? Some people that I knew. I didn't think I was anyone I was going to know, but that didn't stop me. So I drank my Long Island iced tea. How I made it home on the heaven note. Right. And I lost my contact. I have no idea what happened to those contact lenses, but my thinking was, I'm angry with God, I'm serving him, doing the things that you're supposed to do, and this happens, really? And angry and just needing to do something. You have all these pent-up emotions on the inside, turmoil. Then I'm trying to create stability for my children. I still had 2 children to raise, addressing it with my husband. How do you approach your husband when your child tells you something like that? All of those things, and I'm just angry at God. And I was just gonna just drink my angry little soul to death without anyone identifying me. And then I ended up sitting with ex-bar with individuals who did know me. And I just wondered what in the world happened to that contact lens that I never found. I did take them out when I got home and never did find contact lens. But when we're dealing with emotion and grief and loss and all of those things, those emotions can be so overwhelming and so strong on the inside that we do crazy things or not fully present is what I was hearing my sister say. And just getting to a point and place of walking through it. Just walking through it. Grief is a normal, natural response to loss. And in our world, we learn how to acquire things all the time. Houses, shoes, purses, clothes. But we don't talk enough about losing things, which is a normal part of life, loss. So that's a very crazy story for me.
I don't think, I might have one, but I'm the person, like Nicole said, I remember everything, like your birthday, your child's birthday, your parents' birthday. And so in 2018, I forgot everything. So I was off. My husband was definitely off because I'm the one that reminds me. And it was just horrible. But I had to work late one day, and I thought I parked my car in the same place that I park every day. And this lady has the same exact car as me. And I'm literally trying to break in the car like, my key not working. I don't know what's going on. It's dead. My phone dead. So I'm trying to find my husband like, I don't know what to do. The security guard like, what are you doing? I can't get in my car. I'm crying. Like, I can't get in my car. I'm just trying to go home. And he was like, can I see your keys? And he was like, your car is over there. I said, can this be between me and you? I'm like, I don't want you to think I'm crazy because I'm not. He was like, just go have a great day. But I think that was the most reality check for myself to say, it's time to get it together, Shamarah. Like, this is it. Like, you could have went to jail or something. Like, I'm literally in his lady, I don't know who car it is. I'm like, well, I remember how you're supposed to get in the car. You're supposed to stick something in the window, and it's supposed to pop open. And I'm like really? I'm the person when it Terry, I do right. I'd be scared to go to jail, but I'm just like, I just gotta get home. I'm like, I didn't even think about the look all the way back there to see that was my car. So that was.
So you definitely reminded me that something similar. We'll start with you, Dr. Shamarah, and you can bring it down this way. And we kind of touched on this a little bit, but just let's dive in a little bit more. How can grief affect your faith, your relationship with, or perception of the divine?
That's a great question for me, because if you don't know me, I battle with my spiritual side all the time. Just because growing up with my parents not being there, you always ask the question, why me? Why can't I have my mom and dad? Why my friends have their mom and dad and I can't have mine? And so that hindered my belief. Like, I had a foundation of spirituality because growing up in the church with my grandmother who raised me,
She gives us that spiritual foundation. She guided us. But in myself, it was like, I'm already 10 steps behind everybody else. So why do I have to believe in something if he didn't give me the foundation to believe in him with the parents that's supposed to be with me? So that's how it started off. And as I grew, like my faith kind of grew, but I still was grieving. I still had that mistrust. It's like, how am I still supposed to trust you? And it wasn't until in 2018 when my dad and my uncle passed away, it made me really believe that I have to have faith in something, because you've taken basically the two men who were really important in my life, you took them away. And so what makes me think that you're not going to take my husband away? You took my dad, you took my uncle who was my dad. Now I have to deal with potentially this could happen to be, he can take him away. But I had to really, really understand that what he took away from me came back even greater in the long run. And so grief can affect your faith tremendously. But I learned from that grief how I can be closer in faith, because it just allowed me to understand that he won't put more in you than you can bear. And that's when I truly realized it, all the way from born to when I was 35. At 35, I understood and I knew. And so the other part is your relationship and perception. And so now it's like nothing bothers me now. Like everything used to bother me before. I used to let everything, anxiety, I used to always like, why? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. You know, I'm going to be the first doctor in my family. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But again, your perception of when they die, like my dad, the last thing he said was, you're about to do everything that you said you wanted to do when you were a kid. For that, I'm thankful. With my uncle, we had a bet saying the first person who gets in the Cleveland Heights Hall of Fame, we got to pay each other $1,000. And so for me, it was like, I don't have anybody to go back with because you're gone. So then you realize I'm not going to do it by myself. I'm going to do it. You know, we still going to do it together. So from the moment he died, I gave $3,000 of scholarship to Cleveland Heights Foundation for scholarships to students. But now I'm in a position to be in the Cleveland Heights Hall of Fame. And it won't be by myself. It will be with him. So it just made me believe in all the faith that I felt like I lost or never had. It made me really see, like, he's really there. He's really guiding when everything happens for a reason and a purpose. And you just have to hold on to that purpose and be open to receiving it.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing, amazing. How can grief affect your faith? It's twofold. It can affect your faith in a positive way or in a negative way. Because I guess we all would agree serving God is a mystery. And to come to the reality that we live on two realms. We live on the tangible realm, the earthly realm. Yet for those of us who are believers, there's a spiritual realm that's intangible, yet it's real. The spiritual realm is more real than the earthly realm, yet the tangible realm seems like it's more real. And you go through loss that creates grief and all the emotions that fall out from that and the mystery of God. And as Nicole said, she's a planner and she had her life all planned. And my life is pretty planned too, being married that long, and Kathy got married so young, and then all of a sudden your world turns upside down or your plans just fall apart. In the mystery of God, you know, God who watches over us and who's a heavenly Father and who's supposed to love us, yet to allow us to go through so much pain and heartache. And sometimes that pain and heartache, as I heard my sister say, well, you don't even want to get up on the bed. I went through that as well too. Losing a lot of weight, anorexic. People thought I was anorexic because my head was so much bigger than my little skinny body. And yet to still hold the faith, as I shared, I was angry at God. I was mad at God. I struggled. And then when he's silent in that space, that's a struggle. That's a real struggle. And it's a part of life because life is broken. Yet for me, how my losses had really helped strengthen my faith, as my sister said, and it is an amazing story, an amazing journey, and more as God reveals himself in that dark place. Because God will reveal himself in the dark place. And that's the beauty of it, to go through the darkness and then in the darkness to see that ray of light and hope. It could be in the smallest, littlest, seemingly insignificant thing, because I went through 3 years of depression as well, too, because I remarried and then I'm twice divorced. And I think that a relationship was just a spill out of not being healed from the first relationship and marrying an older man. And he was emotionally abusive and going through that dark place. I'm wondering where God is. Yet the ray of hope is he's always there. He's always there in the darkness. God is there in the darkness as well in the light. We look for him differently. We look for him differently, and all of the cliches and how you doing today? Oh, I'm fine. Blessed and highly favored. All those cliches that can hide pain and the reality of what's real in your innermost being, the depth of who you are as a person. When you're going through that dark place, through loss and grief and heartache and pain, and you may have a family or you may not have a family. You may have a support system or may not have a support system. But even if you do, they can't reach you at the depth when you're going through a hard, dark place like God can. So that's why I said there's a duality to life, and there's a duality to our growing in faith. And that duality is the very things that Satan wants to use to oppress us and take us away from God hold the greatest potential to draw us near to God. Yet it's a choice. It's a choice that we'll make each and every day. And we don't always make the right choices, but his love and him sending us the Holy Spirit is a help. I remember one day I was just crying, couldn't stop crying. And I had a divine encounter. And it was so clear. The Lord said, cry if you must. But I want you to know you confuse the angels who are around you, because there's no crying in heaven. Man, I gotta stop crying, got about that bed, took a shower, had me a wonderful day. So it's just amazing. We accept the brokenness of life because it's the reality of life, because it's sin. Yet, because God is love, I don't believe he'll allow us to go through those dark places just to go through them. There's a purpose in our pain, because love wouldn't be love if we went through pain just to go through pain. But like I heard my sister say, and some of the other ladies too, going through the grief and the darkness and the hard places actually can open up to us the mystery of his love in ways we would never experience without darkness.
Oh. So I guess we can all continue to say piggyback, because we're gonna be sharing things. So I'll just tell you from my view, it most definitely did affect me more than I realized. So going through a lot of my issues of grieving and losing myself, I would question, like, I'm really not doing anything bad to anyone. So why is this happening to me? I'm a good woman. Why am I getting abused? You know, I'm taking care of my children. Like, I'm trying to go through my head of what mistakes that I made that make this happen to me. I was hoarding on all the negative. And I'm like, okay, well, now I got to go and do this. Why am I losing? And I felt like I was losing. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'll just make what my sister told me. She's like, you're just making your everyday ugly your normal. What everyone thinks it's crazy, you've gotten so comfortable with it to just accept it, and you made it your normal. And I think that's what I did. I questioned myself so much. I was just like, well, maybe I just did some really messed up stuff when I was younger, and I'm just going to be punished about it. I made my bed and I'm going to lie in it. And I really felt like I just let go and didn't even really, I felt like I have faith, but not realizing at the moment I did not. I thought I did. I am such a godly person. I was raised around multiple religions. I'm very spiritual, not religious. And, but I'm heavy on God. But I view everything in a different way. But I lost it until the pivotal moment. I was working in the post office, and I was going to court almost every 2 weeks. This was like the longest drawn out, most miserable harassment of the end of a divorce ever life. It was like a TV show. Like you would think I made it all up. I came in there and I was just so done. I was exhausted. I was shaking. I just looked horrible. You would thought I was on drugs because I went in there crying. I didn't realize that my coworker was a pastor. He just was like, come on in the office for a second. I was like, I just can't no more. Like, I just can't. And I'm just like pouring out crying. He said, do you know that everything that could you do is not always for you? And I was like, what do you mean? What does it have to do with female? I'm like, I don't understand. And I'm like, just tricking. But it took some time. And slowly through time, repeating that to myself, like it stuck to me. It stuck in my head for so long. Until one day he invited me to his church. And I don't really go to anywhere. I went to his church and he said, I just want you to talk about your experience. And it's Women's Day. Can you just do this for me, please? I'm like, all right, bye, Joey. Like, I'll go. And I went and spoke, and this young lady came up to me. And she looked at me in my eyes and was like, I would have never known. But knowing, hearing that from you, you just made me feel like I can get through anything. And I was like, I'm going that's how this whole better. I was like, but it sat with me. And then I repeated that in my head again. Like, everything you go through is not always for you. Like, wow. I didn't ask for this armor. And in that moment, I started to, instead of hoarding on all the negative things that were happening to me, I started looking at the outcome.
At the beginning of this episode, we're answering the question, what are ways that grief affects your body? We hear from Jamia sharing about being overly exhausted and dealing with eczema. Other symptoms we mentioned were excessive working out, loss of concentration, forgetfulness, getting lost, not being fully present, and weight loss. I'm not a licensed counselor, but one of the things I observed was that grief seems to bring out the underlying issues you already have going on. For instance, I've always been someone who worked out and was active, but spending 2 whole hours in the gym 6 days a week, that was a new one for me. Luckily, it was a healthy addiction, but one I haven't been able to keep up since my full recovery from grief. One of the statements Miss Gloria made that I thought was profound was that our culture trains and teaches us how to acquire things, but never about how to lose things. We don't talk enough about appropriate ways to respond to loss. Selah. One phone moment we had was when we shared about the crazy stuff that happened to us while grieving. My wig story still brings a smile to my face. And I totally relate to Dr. Shamarah almost breaking into someone else's car, because I did have a similar thing happen myself. I was having lunch with my aunt and went outside afterward to the wrong black SUV. I kept hitting my key fob over and over, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. I was so embarrassed by the time I realized it was not my car. Thankfully, I hadn't gone to the lengths Dr. Shamarah had when she had the police helping her. What are some funny moments you can find in your time of loss? Another key point that was made was that sometimes we need to find uncharacteristic outlets for our pain. I've known Jamia for decades, so I can tell you her getting just even 1 tattoo is out of character, let alone 3 in one day. A major topic in this part of the discussion was how our faith was affected by loss. Though I am a faith-based author and publisher, Girl Talk is not, and so the women we have speaking aren't necessarily all on the same faith journey. I believe we can learn from each other, and I don't want to box in our conversations or hinder how God wants to move, simply because someone else's journey doesn't look like mine. That being said, everyone agreed they believe in a higher power, and so their faith was somehow affected by their loss. We're told by Miss Gloria that serving God is a mystery, and that really hit me. I've had to reshift my view of God in light of my path and hard things that have happened. I had gotten too comfortable in believing I could understand or fully know an eternal being. It's been a very humbling experience, mostly brought on by pain and suffering. But ultimately, I think that's what has been required in my persevering. I've had to shift my perception. Miss Gloria expressed her own experience of this when she had to navigate her husband's abuse of their daughter. How could a God who was supposed to love and protect her allow such a horrific thing? That was when the Father's grace manifested, and he showed up for her in a way only he could. I agree with her statement wholeheartedly that no one can show up for you the way God can. If you feel bound in the trenches of grief and heart-wrenching pain, I encourage you, friend, reach for him. I would never have made it through the most challenging obstacles of my life without the Father's intervention, love, and strength. Sometimes God uses people, but sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he wants to manifest himself, spirit to spirit. Dr. Shamarah also shared the need to change her perspective. She had made a bet with her uncle of who would get into the Cleveland Heights Hall of Fame first. After his death, she got in, but knew it was both of them getting in. She was his legacy. I hope we've given you guys enough to move forward in your recovery and healing journey. And stay tuned for part 3 of Dealing with Grief at the Holidays. Something Butter said in the earlier part of our conversation has since stuck with me. She said she had to tell herself, remember who the F you are. I want to echo that statement. Sis, remember who the F you are. I attract amazing women doing amazing things. So guess what? That means you're amazing. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. To continue the conversation, join our Girl Talk community by following @GirlTalkCLE on Instagram and Facebook.com/HTOHB, where you can join the Girl Talk Facebook group. You can follow me personally on Instagram @HTOHB, on Facebook.com/HTOHB, and at YouTube.com/@HTOHB. Feel free to reach out via email info@indiemillerpublishing.com. If you're a writer who wants to take the next steps into becoming a published author, you can book a one-on-one consultation at indiemiller.pub. Just let me know you heard about my publishing house through Girl Talk, and I'll give you a 50% discount on our one-on-one. If you like weekly inspirational nuggets, you can subscribe to my blog and monthly newsletter at NicoleDmiller.com, where you can learn more about me and my writings. Till next time.